Hello and welcome to Ask George with George Dobell and Elizabeth Botcherby. And it's the end of the fourth test between India and England in Ranchi, with India completing a 5-wicket win to clinch the series. Hi George, what did you make of today?
Hello, the Botch. I thought it was more exciting than I thought it was going to be fair. And I thought in the end, actually, Shubman Gill in particular, and Jarrell, who's had a fantastic game, played really, really well. And I thought it was interesting that, what was it, 30 overs they went without hitting the boundary. I thought maybe England could learn from some of that. I just thought it was a really classy partnership, that. But England had it all to do going in today. I think they lost the game. India won the game really on day 3. And that's the first loss under the McCullum-Stokes leadership for England, and maintains India's incredible home record. It does feel maybe a wee bit closer than 3-1, in that England have been more competitive than they have been in recent series, but it's still 3-1.
Well, you can read all of George's coverage of England's tour of India and more by subscribing to the Cricketers digital offering, and you can do that using the link in the video description. And remember, we'll be producing these videos from every day of the 5-test series, and you can submit your questions via our social media channels using the hashtag AskGeorge. And background noise starts us off today. Simple statement: what might have been, eh?
Kinda. I do think that, as I said yesterday, this is an example of India seizing the game rather than England losing it. But it is quite true that there were 2 or 3 occasions when England had opportunities. And when you're playing against a side that's probably a bit better than you have to seize those opportunities. So specifically, I think the drop chance the missed chance in the field maybe cost them 40 or 50. And in the context of a low-scoring game, that's massive. England would have liked to have scored a few more in their second innings. Of course they would, but I thought India played really well. And it would have been good if they could have eked a few more out in the first innings again, in a game of fairly fine margins. Those are, big moments. So, sort of what might have been. They will look back on the series, not least the Joe Root reverse ramp. But, just to put that in perspective, they were still 200 odd behind, 220 or something behind when that happened. They still have a huge amount of work to do. But yeah, they do feel like sliding doors moments, and they do feel like something that could be learned from. And I think what India have done really well is soak up pressure and then go on the attack in a much more conventional way. And I think you do probably have to earn the right, to attack sometimes in Test cricket. And India did that better than England. I mean, the better side of one. There's not really much disputing that.
Do you think England will rue the way they ended their second innings a little bit and how slow everything was? Given maybe a couple more runs on the board, well, more than a couple, but more runs on the board. And when India get 5 down, it would have looked even more nervous than it was.
Do you mean the fact that they lost 7 for 35 or whatever it was, and folks went nowhere?
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously not ideal, but India's bowlers in that situation on that wicket, very, very good. So I think you've got to give some credit there. I don't think there were too many wickets in England's second innings which you would want to say were absolutely awful. And tail-enders are going to struggle. So you have to find a way to score runs in that situation, and 35 for 7 obviously isn't good enough. But do I look back on that and think that's the key area where they've let themselves go? Not really. That's what I mean about India seizing it more than England giving it away or anything like that. England haven't given this away. I think they played quite well. Do you know what? Personally, England have exceeded expectations. Maybe not the scoreline, but the way they've played and how competitive. It's been a really fun series, yeah. Really competitive. And have recent series to India been that competitive? Well, they haven't really. They really haven't. So I thought, as I say, the scoreline doesn't particularly show it, but I don't think they've done too badly, to be honest.
Well, Danny asks, Joe Root's England team drew the 2019 Ashes 2-2 and lost 3-1 in India in 2021. Is there perhaps less difference between the two teams than some people would like to admit?
Categorically, yes. So everything is skewed by the narrative around the COVID tests. And England were doing absolutely fine going into COVID. I mean, if you remember going into COVID, they just won in South Africa. Decent effort, yeah. They had previous year won 3-0, wasn't it, in Sri Lanka. Good effort. Beat India at home summer of 18, 4-1, I think. Quite a lot of decent results. And then COVID happens. And, you know, don't particularly have excuses, but those tests should have asterisks on them. I was in Australia on that COVID tour, yeah? They didn't have a bloody chance. They didn't have a chance. There was no warm-up games. They barely spent any time together. It rained during the preparation bit. It was just a series played to honour the broadcast commitments. And that's fine. I think we all understand the realities of the world, but I thought it was a nonsense to sack the coach and director of cricket afterwards. I thought, the chief executive, maybe. Anyway, do I want to bore you with this story? In Hobart at the end of the tour, I can't remember who I'd arranged to have breakfast with, Ashley Giles, I think. And he arranged for me to have a chat with Tom Harrison because I was annoyed with him. And I was saying, I think you're going to get scapegoated at the end of this tour. And Ashley Giles was like, no, we won't. Everyone understands the difficult situation. And I ended up having a sort of finger-wagging, standing up row in Hobart Harbour with Tom, which was, and I said that you're going to fire these guys after this tour. They haven't had a bloody chance. And no, we're all in it together, all that stuff. And of course, then they got sacked. So I passionately believe that the COVID tests, particularly an extended period in that environment, was desperately tough. It was grim. Honestly, it was. And while England played two tough series anyway, India away and Australia away in those conditions, Australia didn't play a single test away in those years. Now, it's absolutely fine to ignore that and just say, England lost. That's fine. You can't make excuses. That's the way the world works. But the current regime have benefited quite a lot from the fact that they started with this record of the previous regime having one win in 17. Well, that's true. But if you take out the COVID stuff, and people will dispute whether you should or not, they're actually doing fine up until COVID. And I think the win percentage is very similar now, from that sort of start 2018 summer till COVID. The win percentage of that England side is pretty much the same as the Stokes-McCullum side. So it doesn't mean that everything that this side is doing is rubbish. It's clearly not. They're clearly the most fun England side you can think of. And it doesn't mean that side from 18 to 20 was great. Of course it doesn't. But it does mean there's been quite a lot of hype. And actually, you get, this is maybe a bit of a barometer of where they really are. Playing in India is desperately tough. And they've had a bit of a wake-up call, haven't they? But that doesn't mean, I still think they've overachieved, really. But yeah, the point about a more true reflection of the side before, I think, is absolutely pertinent. It is what I wrote in my preview to this test, And yeah, they're 3-1 down, which is the result of the last time England were in India, and they drew the Ashes 2-2, which is the result of the 2019 summer. What is it they've won now? I mean, they haven't won a series since 2022. I think that's a series of over one match. And they haven't. And what's the record now of games? Is it 3-9 they've won? Yep. Something like that. So yeah, a bit of a douse of cold water for English cricket there, but it doesn't mean that everything's rubbish. They're still clearly doing some good things and getting the best out of some players. And I think with just a little bit more common sense and a little bit tailoring, yeah, they could improve further. But they're not saving Test cricket, and they're not the best England side, even of the last 15 years.
Reese Benjamin asks, how did England become more ruthless against Australia and India, and is 3-1 a fair reflection of the series?
Is it about ruthlessness, or is it just that they're playing sides who are better than them? Don't necessarily know the answer. There are moments, I still think that the Joe Root reverse ramp was a poor choice of shot. but it's not like completely ludicrous. It's, he was struggling to play Bumrah. No, I think he should have struggled to play him by seeing him off. Old school. But he tried to hit him out of the attack, disrupt his lengths. You can understand it. It's not so different from the logic of KP getting caught on the fence in Perth in 2013. KP kept getting out Siddle caught at mid-wicket because he kept trying to hit him out of the attack. He got out to Lyon because he was trying to hit him out of the attack. It's not ridiculous. It's just sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's not the way that I'd have done it, but that's absolutely fine, I don't know that it's ruthlessness.
Tom Vickers asks, at the risk of sounding like a coach at a press conference, can England take quite a few positives from this, given they pushed a team that's won 17 home series in a row so close?
Yeah, I mean, so close. I don't think Vizag was a close game. Really, England didn't score anywhere near enough in the first innings, so they needed a bit of a miracle in the first test to win, which is fine. Third test they had an opportunity, but the margin isn't terribly close. And this test, they were on top. To be fair, 5 wickets, it could have got tighter. So they have pushed them, and look, the general theme of the question is right, but I just don't want to overhype what they've done. They are 3-1 down, and they are playing against an India team missing some of their best players. So but they can. They definitely can. They've done some good things. They've shown that. Pope played a great innings. Duckett played a great innings. Ben Folkes is a terrific keeper, although, India have got a good keeper too now. So, there are other things. Shoaib Bashir has really come on. I mean, he is a man they can do business with for years to go. So there are definitely things that they can take pride in. They absolutely can. Yeah.
Indoor Kite Society asks, will England care that they lost the series after making similar mistakes to those they made before?
I don't understand the question. What similar mistakes? You can't tell me though, can you? Sure they'll care. I mean, I don't know. It's a good question, actually. Will they care? I think they're probably realistic about... I mean, did anyone, honestly, let us know, did anyone think they could win, really? I think I remember saying to you before the series started, I don't think there's any combination of players they can put out that's going to win this series. So actually, they have surprised me by how close they've got. But it is 3-1. I don't know that they've made the same mistakes. I think they've tried to do things a bit differently, and that's probably been vindicated. So, but it's hard to answer the question without knowing quite what you mean. Sorry.
What were your expectations for England heading into this series, and how have they exceeded them?
Well, it's been a lot closer. I thought it might be uncompetitive. I can't remember what year it was. 2016 wasn't the most exciting series, to be honest. It didn't really feel very competitive. There were moments, and I thought it might be a bit like that. I think everyone thought that the series was going to be played on more helpful wickets. There's been nothing the matter with the wickets. And I don't understand where the umpiring furore is coming from. There's nothing the matter with the umpiring. It does bother me this year that when you talk to Ben Stokes and hear Ben Stokes speak in context, he doesn't moan, actually. He doesn't. But there's some stuff going on around the camp, and it might be the media and former players as much as anything. It just sounds like whining. Moaning about, I don't want to go there. I don't want to fall out with even more people. But I mean, there's a couple of things. One, if you're in the opposition team, not the media, but if you're in the opposition and you lose, that is not the time to moan. Secondly, England have a reputation for moaning wherever they go, fair or unfair. I think it's largely unfair, but I would say that. But just sometimes when you hear them moaning about, I mean, the question yesterday about umpire's call, I mean, I don't even have a view. As long as you're consistent, some days you benefit from it and some days you don't. But to suddenly start saying or suggesting that there might be something untoward going on there, come on now. There's no evidence of that at all. So I yeah, it disappoints me that people are moaning. I think you can probably learn from defeats, but most of all on this series, it's been a really fun, good series so far. Competitive cricket, I think everyone would agree with that, and the better side have won. Happens.
Do you think it will feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity, though, given the
Yeah,
players India are missing?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Not just that, but these sliding door moments. You know, I'll say again that the Joe Root attempted ramp, Ollie Robinson missing that catch in the field yesterday. Yeah, even I mean, Shad Bashir's obviously been super, but if he had got his head down, Joe Root's at the other end in the first innings, and if he had managed to get 10, England could have added another 50. I mean, it's not ridiculous that that could have happened. So there are lots of little moments, but they are quite little moments. And generally, you've just got to say, Jarrell's played a fantastic innings. You know, that 90 with Kuldeep in support, takes India from a position where they're 190 or something behind, and they end up, 46 behind. So that's a huge moment, and you've just got to say, well played, apart from the missed chance. But equally, Kuldeep, Ashwin, and Jadeja, I know he had a quiet game relatively, but on a turning wicket, it's really tough. So yeah, of course there are missed opportunities. It does feel like there are some missed opportunities, but on the balance of play, India are the better side in India, aren't they?
Occidental Tourist asks, throughout the series, when there have been so many moments to seize the initiative, India have been more consistently able to do so. What have England lacked?
Well, a tighter spin attack, because I think Shoaib's got better and better. But Tom Hartley bowls some good balls, but there are release balls that just are. And the same with Rehan. He did pretty well, but he will go for a few runs. Ashwin and Jadeja, England really tried to attack and did so well at times, but they're very, very good. And Ashwin got better and better through the series. I can't think of a better new ball spinner that I've ever seen. I mean, he's obviously brilliant in lots of ways, but we saw a bit more of him at his best in this game, and his best is pretty terrific. So that's one thing. The middle order didn't score a lot of runs. I mean, how many times have England middle order passed 50 in this series? Is it twice? Joe Root got 100 at 4. I'm going to say from 4 to 7. Ben Stokes got 70 in one game. Is that it?
I think so.
Johnny Bairstow hasn't reached 40. Ben Folks had a couple of decent innings, but without kicking on. I think Stokes has only had one good innings, and Root's only had one good innings. So, those are massive areas. And those chances in the field. Obviously, Joe Root in the third test misses a tough chance at slip, huge moment. Robinson yesterday misses a slightly less tough one at mid-wicket, big moment. When you're not as good a side as the other side, you probably have to take all these moments. But we knew the spin attack was inexperienced. We knew that was going to be a problem. And I thought, if you're being realistic about where they are in their careers and the weakness that we know English cricket has with spin, I thought they overachieved.
Pumpkin Grower asks, does this test prove that the one-man seam attack theory is correct for turning tracks?
Well, it's not wrong, but I'm not sure that this test proves it. No, because, for example, India's seamers were both useful at different stages. Akashdeep had a funny game, really. His game was almost over in the first hour, wasn't it? But he was brilliant in the first hour. Equally, James Anderson and Ollie Robinson, I thought they had some opportunities in India's first innings. I thought Anderson's had an okay game. I mean, would it have been really useful to be able to turn to Rehan? I mean, maybe, but I thought it was okay. Is there a time and place for a one-person seam attack? Don't know. I mean, it's only happened twice, hasn't it, in this series, and then twice in history, we think. And I mean, I suppose they won, but it wasn't like Mark Wood had a particularly brilliant game in Hyderabad, was it?
Were you at all surprised that they didn't turn to Robinson at all in the second innings?
Well, I might have started with him, but once today got underway and it was pretty obvious what was happening, no, you wouldn't go back to him once, in that last passage of play from when India needed sort of 90 onwards. It was really Shoaib and Hartley for India, wasn't it? And I thought Shoaib did well. But this is a really good example. Shubman Gill played brilliantly. I mean, and Jarrell had an excellent game. But I thought Shubman Gill won't get the credit he deserves, maybe, because what did he finish with? 52? Doesn't sound like a great score, but it was just such a classy innings. And you saw how his middle order colleague struggled against Shoaib. And he didn't. He made it actually look pretty straightforward. It was a classy, composed innings. So that is a really good example of what I'm saying. Yes, you can say England should have done this, should have done that. Basically, you just got to give India credit. There are some frustrations, there are some missed opportunities, but basically India won, and it's been a good series. It's been a better series than I thought it would be. It's been more fun. Nearly every day has been engrossing. Really good cricket. Don't know. I think it's been quite a good advert. Honestly, I say again, I've seen some quite prosaic series in India before, all very one-sided ones, and it didn't feel like that. It felt as if both sides actually could be quietly satisfied. Is that a ridiculous thing to say, the Botch, bearing in mind that England are 3-1 down?
No, I don't think so. I think it would be very easy to overhype what England have done in India, given they have lost. But yeah, it has been exciting, it has been entertaining, and there have been moments where you think, oh, could they? So yeah, it's been fun.
Which is more than I thought going into the series. So if you start with the low expectations that I had, and I think were reasonable and realistic, then I think England have overachieved. But if that is maybe a very modest outlook on English cricket, well, maybe. But for people who might be watching in India, spinners are hardly used in English cricket now. It's almost impossible. They play so much cricket in the start of the end of the season when, medium pace seamers using a Duke's ball absolutely dominate, that it makes it desperately tough. So Hartley and Bashir go back to county cricket, and I'm not sure they get in their sides. Genuinely, and if Shoaib Bashir gets in his side, Jack Leach doesn't, because they both play for Somerset. Tom Hartley will be competing or complimenting Nathan Lyon. Well, maybe at Old Trafford they both get in, maybe. But they had Matt Parkinson there last year, and he didn't get out of the game, did he? And had to leave. So it's very, very hard to develop spin bowlers in England. It's a huge weakness of the English system. And so with that knowledge, you kind of have different expectations about what's achievable. And that's why I think actually they've done pretty well. And I still think Ben Stokes is an inspirational captain. I wish that I understand why he says what he says, and that there's a bit of nuance, and that he shows he can soak up pressure and all the rest of it. Some of the noise around him is a bit absurd. And I'm not convinced by McCullum, if I'm honest. I'm not, but I seem to be the only person that isn't. Maybe I'm just a misery. It's like Astral Weeks. Everyone tells me how good Astral Weeks by Van Morrison is. I like Van Morrison. I just can't get it. I just don't get it. With Nail and I, everyone tells me how fun it is. I don't get it. Sorry, I don't. I don't really like ABBA.
The last one I can't agree. I can't agree with the last one. I love ABBA.
Do you? Yeah, really?
Yes. Big Mamma Mia fan.
A bit.
Musicals are a guilty pleasure, have to say.
Musicals?
Yeah, well, Mamma Mia.
I see.
That.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. You know how many times I've spent on aeroplanes in the last decade, and I've never watched Mamma Mia. Do you know, if I was stuck under a rock fall from now to eternity, and Mamma Mia was but maybe I'm missing out. Anyway, I didn't mean to
instead of the
gratuitously. Yeah, no, that'd be very cold.
And obviously it is a long time until the fifth test, and no idea what the pitch is going to be like, anything like that. But how would you like to see England approach the match? And, is it time to maybe throw in Dan Lawrence, throw in Gus Atkinson, and just see what happens?
I'm not a big fan of throwing people in and seeing what happens, to be honest. I don't think they're far away. Look, if Johnny Bairstow gets dropped, he can't really complain. I don't think they will, because I think that, one, it's his 100th test, shouldn't be relevant. And two, they probably want to get to the end of the series before bringing someone else in, because they're going to bring Brooke in, of course, as soon as available at the start of the next English season. And they maybe don't want to give themselves a situation where Darren Lawrence can do well enough to make life difficult. Does that make sense? Look, we're expecting it to be a seamer, or help the seamers a bit more, but I don't know what to expect. And I think Ollie Robinson will probably get another game. Hasn't done a lot with the ball to justify it. That piece seemed to divide opinion, didn't it? Did you notice? Although it divided opinion a lot between people who just read the headline and came up with a big opinion, and those who actually read it. Anyway, the situation is that we don't know what the pitch is going to be like, so it would be wrong to have too many strong opinions, but I don't see them ripping things up and starting again. So I would think that you might see one more seamer, but you might see the same attack. I mean, wouldn't be at all surprised if you saw the same attack. Be interesting though if there is only one spinner, or one spinner plus Root, who they played. I think the temptation would probably be to play Hartley because you got Root as an offie, but Shoaib's the best of them, I think, by a distance actually. And actually, he seems to trouble right-handers as much as left. So if they played one, I'd play Shoaib, to be honest. And Gus Atkinson, yeah, it'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it? He's not, when people talk about, we've got pace, there's Mark Wood and Joffre when he's fit, and the rest, yeah? He's miles quicker. But Gus Atkinson is sharp. But you've got to be, he's learning this trade. It would be asking a lot for him to come in and make a big difference, I think. But, maybe he will. I think you probably want to give Ollie Robinson one more. It was a really underwhelming performance with the ball. But maybe he'll be better for the run out. Are we done?
Yeah.
Cool. I thought might want some more ABBA.
No, I was just trying the awkward silence thing, and it just made me cringe.
Should we do it? Should we do more of that? Was that bit left in yesterday?
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I was watching.
Try it. Sign off with. Go on, try it. Try the awkward silence thing.
Absolutely not. It makes me, physically cringe.
You've just done it.
I know.
I'd rather listen to awkward silence than ABBA.
And on that note, thanks, George. And we'll be back with more Ask George for the 5th test.
Cheers to Botch.